our able media houses presence, members and executives of the NLC, chiefs and opinion leaders. Grateful for having all of you here. Today, the NLC believes moving this country forward with all its 35 million citizens along by running this country like a business entity. All previous governments have been running the country like a sole proprietorship business entity. As a population of about 35 plus Ghanaians, we have less than 1 million Ghanaians on government payroll. So let's assume there's hardship in the country because let's assume less than 10 million, let's say 10 million children and underage. You have 25 million to deal with. How does the country move these people along? Is by running this country as a business entity. That is the only way you can you can create employment. You can you'll be part and parcel of this country. Government pulling all of you, everybody along. The NLC believes that no matter how infrastructure you put in place, no matter how you build the economy, if there is no way for it to reflect on an average Ghanaian, if there's no way to show that a Ghanaian has a future, it's like having beautiful homes and your children are jobless, torn clothes. It doesn't represent what you have. So in order to move this country forward, structures must be put in place to make sure that there's a strong, robust foundation to reflect this country touching every Ghanaian. So in order to achieve that in this country, the NLC believes that we must first and foremost establish banks in the country. Banks for every sector of the economy must have a bank. Every ministry in this country must have a bank, except the security and then the education sector. So once the banks are being established in collaboration with the citizens and the foreigners and have more banks, imagine Agric Ministry will have a bank, Works and Housing will have a bank, Health will have a bank, all the institutions, there's a bank that will fund all those sectors. That is the first foundation of the NLC making immediately we assume office. Singapore has a population less than 10 million. They have 378 banks as at now, funding every sector of the economy. Once you have the banks in the system, it means this country will be run like a business entity, not a sole proprietorship that we are seeing that there is no hope. Some of you have finished schooling, you cannot get business, capital to establish your own radio stations. You are at the mercy of just working for people. Excuse me to say, most radio station owners can't even read and write, but you have degree holders working for them, and you have a future to also grow. So we have a bank we have a media bank, we have an auto bank, we have an agri bank, we have railway and roads bank. We have banks. Once you make the environment conducive and structures in place, bigger banks will come in and they will swallow the smaller banks. It means you have bigger banks, foreign banks that will come with the money, the local bank, because we'll make it that any bank that is to be established in this country, it will be led by a citizen that will lead. Any foreigner will have to partner with a citizen to open, so that in such a way that the money will stay in this country. So once the NLC have that put in place, that an average young man can say, like, government has no business building low-income houses. Government, you can package each other. Your rent is 500 Ghana. Some rent is 1,000 Ghana. You can go outskirts and get a place, package yourself. Once you have your salary and everything, that it will be deducted. One of you will contact a contractor and who will take a letter to the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance of this country will be giving letters of credit to organizations. It's mandatory, and then they will go to Parliament to go and defend that. Are you getting me? So that letter of credit is only to give a comfortable guarantee that any project that they are funding if every ministry, for example, the NLC believes that every ministry in this country, there is a commercial section, will abolish the criminal freebies of giving budget allocatory to ministries, making ministers very lazy, unproductive. Every minister is waiting for a budget, whereby the commercial section is there. From agric to roast, they all have a commercial section. So when the NLC government, when we cancel budgetary allocation to certain ministry, except the security, that's the military and the police and what have you, and the education, every minister will discover the commercial section at every ministry to run in partnership with the citizens. In that, it means, as a young man, we start with the health. The health ministry, we already have the national health insurance. After we put all those structures in establishing the bank in place, it means every person in a rural area that have the capacity, whether you are a doctor, you are a nurse, or you want to establish a small clinic, you do your feasibility studies. There's a special bank will be established to fund rural banks for individuals, under which will be absorbed by the national health insurance. And once that is put in place, the advantage to government is that it will take the burden of government, burden hospitals in certain rural areas that it doesn't have the resources. And then remember, to run a country and be successful, you have to run it alongside the citizens. So the government will make taxes from these private-owned hospitals. The backlog of nurses waiting to be transferred will be a thing of the past. It will create employment. And we should not also forget that most countries, they have banks that fund the health sector. And when we talk about health sector, it's not necessarily hospitals. I'm talking about logistics. They fund, if you have a contract, they fund. And the advantage of the NLC vision, if you have a contract, you don't have to wait for government paying you, or if government doesn't have the resources. You can comfort the Ministry of Finance will give the letter of credit, the banks will fund the project, and by so doing, because Ministry of Finance gives you the letter of credit, it will make sure that you are paid as a contractor because they know the source of the money coming in. That is how Pakosinden Bank and other banks collapse, because most of the money went to the contractors that government wasn't able to pay them on time, and they found themselves in that position. If you go to Ministry of Agric, why should Agric Development Bank and the NLC, Agric Development Bank would only be funding projects that are related to farming? I'm talking about providing combined harvesters. I'm talking about providing tractors, logistics, warehouses, irrigation, all will be funded by the farmers. And it's going to create, look at the vast lands that are wasting. We have Western countries that are so small, that are bigger as just even Kumasi, but they produce and export in billions of cities. We say, so you have people that will go into the farming, they will create, it will create employment, there's funding already, and also the agric extension officers, they are roaming in the bushes not working. Imagine the whole country, there's a bank strictly for farming. Imagine what will happen in this country. And the government will be attaching them to the private farmers to help them get the right seedling, the technology, and it's going to be export. The waste, no, nothing will be wasted. Even the waste rotten corn or spoiled corn can still even be used for chicken feed or pig feed or what have you. And all government will make a lot of money.